Hello, my name is Rituparna Ghosh and I welcome you to Golpo, my storytelling podcast where I share stories that have picked me. Yes, stories really choose me. These are stories that I love to perform, read out, and tell every now and then in my workshops and performances. Is this a podcast for children or adults? If you have a heart beating for stories, then this one is for you. So sit back and listen. Let the story choose you. Here we go. The Oak and the Reed. On the banks of an ever winding river stood a grand old oak tree. No one knew who planted the tree, for it looked like over a century old. The oak had stood there like an old grandfather, or a grandmother, if you like it, for it had been nurturing life on and around it for many years. The tree was home to many birds. The woodpeckers, in particular, loved it. The bark was a friendly playground for a family of squirrels, while the roots were home to slugs, snails, spiders, and centipedes. One day, the oak looked down at the reeds growing near its foot and said, "Look up, little one, straighten up. Why don't you sink your roots down and raise your head towards the sky?" The reed replied, "I'm quite okay here. Under your shade, I'm perfectly fine. I may not be as grand as you, but I'm safer." The oak had stood the test of time. It had weathered the scorching sun, the pelting rain, the slicing snow, and thunderous winds. It had stood resolute and unshakable for several years. However, there came a day when a massive hurricane swept past the tree, uprooting it from the soil and tossing it away from where it had stood for years. The oak tree, now fallen down, looked forlorn. It saw the reeds wavering in the wind and asked, "You survived?" The reed replied, "I bent low when the winds came. I let them pass because that's how I can survive." This story has been told over the years to show how proud the oak had been of its strength and grandeur, that it is wiser to bend and buckle in obscurity than be uprooted when troubled. Let's relook at the story of the oak through our story prism. Have you ever thought of people in your life who have stood up like the oak? The people who have sheltered you from the gusts of nature? They could be your parents, your friends, your teachers, and sometimes even strangers who had let you grow up under their care. Now think of yourself as the oak. When you grow up to be a team leader, school captain, or even an older sibling, how would you weather a storm in your life? It could be a challenge, a task, a conflict that would create unrest in your life. Would you fight the storm and not let it beat you down? Or would you learn from the willow and bend a little to survive? There are no easy answers here because some storms have to be weathered with a strong foothold, some others ducked to survive. How will you act will be your oak and the reed story to tell. If you have one already, do share it with us. Thank you for listening. Golpo is a storytelling podcast with stories in English, Hindi, and Bangla. If you enjoyed the story and the podcast, drop me a line at contact@yourstorybag.com. Until next time, happy storytelling.